Oi, pessoal. A live vai ser em inglês e depois eu vou traduzir para vocês legendado. Tô bem ansioso aqui. Separei várias perguntas legais para fazer para ele. Vamos aguardar ele entrar aqui, aí eu convido ele e a gente começa. Espero que seja bem legal essa live aqui. Vamos ver se ele consegue entrar. Já mandei aqui o convite para ele. Para quem não sabe, ele é um médico. Ele estuda muito sobre nutrição e ele que difundiu essa ideia da proteína e energia. Então entende muito desse assunto e tem até algumas dúvidas que eu tenho que eu vou aproveitar para tirar aqui com ele. Vai ser muito legal, já traduzi uma palestra dele. Então acho que vai ser muito boa essa live. Estou bastante ansioso. Agora vamos ficar aqui no aguardo dele entrar. Vamos ver aqui se ele entrou. Obrigado, pessoal, todas palavras de apoio e tal. Fiquei muito feliz que ele aceitou meu convite. Nem acreditei, né? Então, tô muito ansioso aqui. Eu cortei o cabelo semana passada, foi justamente por causa dessa live aqui. Ele ainda não entrou. Vamos esperar aqui ele entrar. Eu acho que eu vou tirar os comentários mesmo quando ele entrar, pra ficar melhor. Porque vai ser tudo em inglês, tá, pessoal? Depois eu vou legendar, não se preocupem. Mas não tem como fazer uma live com... Olha, ele entrou. Não tem como fazer uma live com... Hi, Ted.
Hey, how's it going?
Nice. It's an honor to have you here today. I
Oh,
have
thanks for having me.
I have followed your work for a long time. I read your book and translated one of your presentations to Portuguese. You are really well respected voice here and a thought leader in the low carb community in Brazil, even among doctors. I'm really happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I think you don't need introduction. I'm sure most of people in here knows who you are, and I would rather make the best of your time here and ask to you some questions that I think that are important and interesting. You may even be tired to tell your story again and again. Then let's just skip that. It's okay for you?
Sure.
Let's start. Here in Brazil, there's a rivalry between low-fat and low-carb diets. Should we be focusing on something else? If people are eating real food, even bananas or rice, and prioritizing protein, will the diet be effective?
Great question. And you're right. There's always low fat versus low carb, low fat, low carb, the constant war there. Um, Honestly, they're both right. They're both correct. You could go on a very, very low fat diet. And as long as the protein is high enough and the fiber is high enough and the satiety per calorie is high enough, you'll be fine. You could go on a low carb diet and do the same thing. And so it's much smarter to actually be both. What you really want for maximum success is to be a little bit low carb and low fat. So I think my most successful patients are keeping protein high all the time, fiber, protein and fiber, and then they're always trying to be a little bit more low carb and low fat at the same time. And I think that is the very best approach. So the low carb people are right, and the low fat people are right. And you really want to be both at the same time. Um, but you said rice. Did you say rice?
Yes.
I'm not a huge rice fan. Rice, even as a carbohydrate, is not a great carbohydrate. It has fairly low satiety per calorie as carbohydrates go. So you'd be better off with a lower carb, like actually fruit has better satiety per calorie. If someone was going to eat carbohydrate, I would prefer fruit or tubers, both of which have higher satiety per calorie. Rice is bad. I'm not a big rice fan. You could eat a little bit of rice. I'm never gonna give rice a recommendation.
I
Rice is bad.
I agree with you. I always say fruits and potatoes, tubers are a best source of carbs. But
Absolutely.
here in Brazil, it's like everyone eats rice and beans. It's like the main plate of everyone. But I agree with you that there's other options about carbs.
Yep.
Uh, what is your opinion on the obesity insulin theory? What's the impact of insulin on weight gain, weight loss? What's the real impact of insulin?
Well, I don't really believe in the classic insulin obesity theory. The carbohydrate insulin model, I don't really believe it. And honestly, it is because protein is insulinogenic. Protein raises insulin, but if all you eat is protein, you're going to be extremely lean and extremely insulin sensitive. So I don't really buy that. Um, I think that eating carbohydrate and raising insulin does shift your whole body's metabolism towards a carbohydrate burning rather than fat burning mode, but only based on the number of calories of carbohydrate you ate. So it's really just displacing fat oxidation. Carbohydrates are just displacing fat oxidation, and it's not that big a deal. I think that we have been chasing the carbohydrate insulin hypothesis in the low carb world, and it's kind of a waste of time. I mean, it's important to understand how carbs shift your whole body's metabolism using insulin, but as long as your calories are low enough, it's really not about the insulin.
I agree. I see many people with an unjustified fear of insulin, even healthy foods that will not affect your weight loss, like whey protein, because supposedly they raise insulin. Often people swapping a fruit, even if a sweeter one, for a lot of cheese or nuts, and ends
Hmm.
up slowing down weight loss because of energy density.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly what you said.
When adopting a high protein diet, like the pea diet, it's not unusual for people to feel full before they eat enough protein in for their body weight, like 1.6 grams of protein per kilo. Should people force down more protein, or should they listen to their body and stop eating? What would you suggest?
Oh, always listen to your body. I never eat when you're not hungry. The first rule of eating is don't eat if you're not hungry. You never want to make yourself hit some sort of protein goal. That's terrible. Uh, I would say that if you choose leaner proteins, if you eat more fish or skinless poultry or whey protein or something really lean, really low fat, you're less likely to feel full when you hit your protein target. So my advice is if you're not hungry, don't eat. And next time, maybe choose leaner proteins, like something with less fat.
That's nice. I have this question too because people see I have to eat more protein, but then they just can't eat more protein.
Mhm.
Uh, how much do you think that's the minimum protein that anyone should eat?
I think that every single adult should be eating at least 90 grams of protein a day. I think that if you were really careful with your diet, you would be just fine, probably on 90 grams of protein a day. but I think that you'd be even better off with maybe 120 grams of protein a day. So for me, I'm recommending that most adults hit at least 120 grams of protein a day. That seems to be like a bare minimum for me. But you could
Okay.
probably get by with 90 if you were really efficient at your protein use. It's kind of low though.
Right. But if the people can't get 90 grams later in their body then, and the next day treat more, or you have to reach at least 90 grams.
Well, I can you repeat that? I don't think I understand.
Okay. The people she wants to eat more protein, but she
Uh-huh.
can't get 90 grams. She really should try eat that even without hungry,
Hmm.
or or she should stop eating. I can't eat more protein even if it's low protein, and next day I try eat more.
I would say just eat leaner proteins. If you eat protein with, if you're eating a very lean protein, nobody should have any trouble getting to 90 grams a day. I mean, that's you. If that's all you ate is 90 grams of protein a day, you'd be very hungry all the time. It would be easy to do.
Ah, okay, right. It's well known that it's harder to maintain weight loss than to initially lose weight. Why it's so hard to maintain weight loss? Can you explain a little bit about the physiological and metabolic changes at play?
Yes. So as your body gets smaller, your basal metabolic rate goes down. So the number of calories you need goes down. So let's say I'm 200 pounds and I need 2,000 calories a day just for my basal metabolic rate. But then I lose weight and I'm down to 150 pounds and now I only need 1,500 calories a day, right? I should use kilograms. I'm sorry. So, if I'm 100 kilos and I lose down to 70 kilos, I go from 2,000 calories a day down to 1,500 calories a day. And that's less food, but your body wants to continue eating the same amount of food and burning the same amount of energy. That's why, as you get thinner, you want to ramp up your exercise so that your activity level gets higher as you get thinner, and then you can still eat the same amount of calories and burn the same amount of calories every day. That's why exercise is so crucial, not as much to lose weight, but to maintain weight loss. Exercise is probably your very best strategy for maintaining weight loss. And even not just exercise, just activity level, like walking and moving around and doing lots of things. That's crucial for maintaining weight loss.
There is a respected doctor here in Brazil, Dr. Rodrigo Bomeni, who says, be thankful for hitting a plateau because most of people are regaining weight. So it's very, very common not to regain weight. And
Hmm.
how does the pea diet or a high protein diet help maintain weight loss?
If you in America, we have something called the National Weight Control Registry, and they record anyone who's lost more than 30 pounds and kept it off for more than a year. So it's people who have had long-term successful weight loss. And if you look at what they did to get the weight loss, there's almost nothing that they have in common. Exercise. Nope. Some people did a lot of exercise. Some people did no exercise. Carbs. Nope. Some people ate a lot of carbs. Some people ate no carbs. Fat. Nope. Some people ate a lot of fat. Some people ate no fat. Calorie counting. No. Some people counted all their calories and some people didn't count any calories. There's only one thing that everybody in that registry has in common. They raised their protein percentage to an average of about 19% when the worldwide average is 14 or 15%. And in America, the average is about 12.5%. So American protein percentage is 12.5. World is 14, 15, 14. Weight successful long-term weight loss, 19%. And then, of course, you got hunter-gatherers. The average is 33%. And then you have bodybuilders who average 40 to 50%. So as you go higher and higher in protein percentages, you just get leaner and leaner people with better and better insulin sensitivity. The same thing is true in animal studies as well. Protein percent of the diet is the single most important factor. Everything else is less important. Carbs versus fat, exercise, calories. The protein percentage, the long-term protein percentage is the single most important factor for weight loss maintenance.
Do you think when someone lose weight eating a lot of protein, the metabolic change is different from a classic restriction?
Yes, absolutely. Because the thermic effect of food is so high, you can eat a lot more calories. So if you're just ramping down your calories, your protein's also going to be lower. You're going to have a lower thermic effect of food. You're going to have lower energy flux. You're going to have more symptoms of low calories, like being cold or being tired or being fatigued or low energy. In fact, the very best way to go is keep your calories just as high as they were, but change all your carb and fat calories into protein calories. So you're still eating a really high level of calories. It's just a lot more protein. And then you allow that thermic effect of food to give you higher energy levels and more heat generation. You're warmer, you're more active. It's a lot better that way.
Great answer. Many people here still have are afraid of letting calories too high. Like, I need a lot of protein, but I think I still eat too much calories. But as you said, if those calories come from protein, there's not a big problem.
Right.
Right. In some of your videos, you talk about diabetic patients regain their ability to eat carbs after putting on muscle, not just losing weight. Can you tell us more about that? Have you seen this happening with any of your own patients?
Okay, yes. So diabetes has really two components to it. First of all, you have very little room in your muscles for glucose, either because you never exercise or you don't have very much muscle. And then you have very little room in your fat cells because they're too full. So in order to be a type 2 diabetic, you have to run out of storage in those two major energy compartments. You have to run out of muscle energy storage and you have to run out of fat energy storage. And the best way to do that is to have really, really high fat and really, really low muscle. And so most of our type 2 diabetics have extremely low muscle and they're never using it, and extremely full fat cells, and they've used every single one in their entire body. And that's the recipe for diabetes. That's actually what diabetes is low muscle and high fat. And you can completely reverse that if you just become a bodybuilder and you get a lot of muscle and you're depleting all the glycogen from it regularly, and you get your fat cells small enough. And now you have storage room in your muscles and in your fat cells. And then you can eat whatever you want. You can eat carbohydrate, and the glucose just falls into your muscles. You can eat fat and you have room in your fat cells. Your blood sugar is nice and low. Your triglycerides are nice and low. You really can completely reverse type 2 diabetes and then regain normal glucose tolerance again if you can build muscle and lose fat at the same time. Recomposition, you lose fat and build muscle at the same time, which is honestly the goal of every single person already anyway. Every single person wants the highest muscle mass at the lowest fat mass that they can get. And that should be your goal constantly. And the way you do that is by prioritizing protein over non-protein energy, carbs and fats. And then, of course, doing a bunch of exercise.
I think that is a game changer because everyone only talk about remission of diabetic, uh, lose weight and you can control your disease. But you say we can really reverse this with exercise. Uh, it's just a theory, or you saw that?
Oh, I see that. I've seen that a lot of times. I see it every day. It's not
Really?
just a theory. No, it's very
Uh,
real.
because I think the hard part is diabetic patient don't have a good lifestyle. He really have to transform everything to be the bodybuilder. Uh, how long did it take the cases you saw? Years or?
Oh, you can normalize your blood sugar in just a few weeks. In just a few weeks of a protein sparing modified fast, we'll see blood sugar down to normal range. But building muscle is a lot slower, so it takes months or even years to really get optimal. Uh, in order to get full metabolic flexibility, that's a lot slower. So getting your carbohydrate tolerance back could take a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years to fully gain that. But so you can get the blood sugar down really fast with just eating a protein sparing modified fast. It's eating basically nothing but protein. But then it takes a couple of years to get your sensitivity back, your full carbohydrate sensitivity.
Nice. A lot of people, especially women find it difficult to eat enough protein. Do you have any tips or advice for them?
Yes, I think that low fat dairy is helpful for a lot of women. And by that I mean low fat plain Greek yogurt, low fat cottage cheese, egg whites, whey protein powder. Those are all good ways to add in protein. You could even throw in, I'm not a huge fan of vegan products, but you could throw in plant-based proteins if you wanted, like wheat gluten or soybeans or tofu. These are all okay. They're not great. The other secret is, like I said before, just eating leaner proteins. If you're eating a very lean protein like fish, it's a lot easier to eat protein without being full or feeling like it's eating too much. So leaner proteins, low fat dairy, I think these are helpful.
It's great. We have Greek yogurt and cottage here in Brazil. Uh, but some people will start low carb. They start to think those are bad. You can only eat yellow cheese. You have to eat yogurt with fat. And I try to tell people cottage is still low carb. Greek
Hmm.
yogurt is still low carb, but they are low fat too, and are great options to lose weight. And
Absolutely.
uh, in the book Eat Like Animals, I you recommend this book in your Twitter. Is a great book.
Hmm.
Also, it emphasizes the importance of protein. It also talks about how protein can speed up the aging process. What do you think about it?
All of their research, so they studied insects predominantly. So doctors Rabenheimer and Simpson do a lot of insect studying. That's their major field of study, but they also studied some smaller mammals like mice. Uh, Most of their data is coming from insects and fruit flies and mice. There are no higher order animals that they've studied at all. And so what they came up with is this theory in flies and mice. The if you eat more carbs and less protein, you prolong the lifespan. Well, you don't necessarily prolong health span because we don't know what the quality of life for these animals were. For example, they were much less fertile. For example, the male mice who had the low protein, high carbohydrate diets had extremely small testicle size. They literally measured the testicle size and the testosterone of these mice, and the male mice on the high carb, low protein diet had extremely low levels. And I don't know about you, but that doesn't really appeal to me. So we have mice as the highest order animal that they studied. And yes, they lived a tiny bit longer, but their sexual function and their I would argue their quality of life was significantly lower. And then they extrapolated that. They said if mice live longer on a high carb, low protein diet, then every other animal on earth will also do that, including humans or any animal. Well, that's just obvious garbage. Can you imagine feeding a lion a high carb, low protein, protein restricted diet? What do you think would happen to your lion in the zoo if you gave it a high carb, protein restriction diet? Do you think it would live longer? I mean, it would look awful. It would feel awful. And I'm sure it would die faster. And even an omnivore like a bear, if you could imagine a bear on a high carb, low protein diet, I don't think that's going to end well. So I think they're full of crap when it comes to other animals. Like each mammal has such a different diet. There's no way you can generalize that. I mean, like dolphins can't eat any carbohydrate at all. If you feed a dolphin just a tiny amount of carbohydrate, it has instant diabetes. It has instant type 2 diabetes level blood sugars because they just can't do that. They can only eat protein and fat. So it's just dumb that they extrapolate that to other animals. I don't buy it at all.
Ah, great answer again. I
There's
agree with
no evidence in humans for anything like that. That's total garbage.
the evidence we have is eating more proteins better for you in like every study.
Right, exactly.
Still, people have a little afraid of protein and they always ask how much protein can I eat? Can I eat? What do you say to this?
I had these crazy studies where they had cyclists who were cycling for, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and they were eating 6,000 calories a day. They were feeding them just whey protein shakes, and 80% of their calories came from protein. And some of them were eating over 600 grams of protein a day, and nothing bad happened to them. I don't know how they felt. They didn't talk about how they felt, but they were healthy. They were fine. So there doesn't seem to be like an actual number for how much is too much. Bodybuilders are eating insane quantities of protein. We have studies, all the way up to 4.4 grams per kilo for, I believe a year. And these people were fine. Nothing bad happened to them at all. These are insane amounts of protein. I don't think anyone has to go that high, but there really doesn't seem to be a ceiling or an upper limit to protein. So I'm not terribly worried about it.
Right.
There's definitely such a thing as too low. That I know for
Yes.
sure.
Uh, do you think a person can gain fat with a caloric surplus from protein? I know there's studies saying no, but to people who train, go to gym, but a sedentary person like a woman who don't do anything, she can gain fat from caloric surplus from protein.
It's almost impossible. So we have over protein overfeeding studies where they just dump 1,000 calories of protein on top of someone's diet with no change in exercise. And what happens is lean mass goes up immediately. Energy expenditure goes way up, so you're just burning more energy. Fat mass doesn't seem to go up at all. And the biochemistry of converting protein into fat is so difficult that it almost never happens. And in fact, we have this theory that if you ate 100% protein, you would die of energy starvation no matter how much protein you ate. And that's what rabbit starvation technically is an energy starvation because you just cannot get enough energy from protein to make the fat that you have to have in your body. So probably no, you probably can't get fat from protein. If someone were eating a lot of protein and getting fatter, I would always blame the small amounts of fat or carbohydrate that came along with the protein. Like if you were literally eating 100% pure protein, I don't think you would see fat gain.
Right. So people, you don't have to be afraid to eat too much protein. You will not gain weight or fat mass, né? So even Ted said, be free to eat your protein. You talk about the benefits of reducing the frequency of carb consumption. What is the difference between 100 grams of carbs split between two meals versus having it all at once? At once.
Um, Well, so once you're fat adapted, there's probably no difference. You could probably eat 10 grams of carbs every hour all day long. It's not a big deal. But if you're not fat adapted yet, if you haven't upregulated this fat oxidation, if you're still glucose dependent, I think shrinking your carbs down to just once a day will help you with fat adaptation because there's such a long period of time you have to go getting all of your energy from fat rather than glucose. So I think that shrinking down the carbohydrate frequency is a good way of getting fat adapted. Now, once somebody is really fat adapted, I don't care anymore. You do whatever you want. If you're super thin, if you've hit your goal, if you have a lot of muscle, no fat, you eat as many carbs as you want. I don't care. You eat them anytime you want. I don't care. You're going to be super fat adapted anyway. But if you're very dependent on carbohydrates right now, so you have to eat carbs every few hours, and you can feel your blood sugar falling, and you're getting hungry for more carbs. Okay, that's when shrinking down your carb window is going to be a helpful way of improving fat adaptation, just like a low carb diet does or more exercise does. These are all any intermittent fasting, low carb diet, shrinking carb frequency, exercise, they all improve fat adaptation. And so these are all just tools to become more fat adapted.
That's nice. I always wonder if someone without metabolic problems would benefit from carb frequency consumption, but you say that there's no big difference.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Uh, I always wonder if someone without metabolic problems would benefit from this carb frequency, but you said it don't matter, only to right.
Right. I
Uh,
think if you're really, really healthy, it's probably not a big deal.
right. Let's talk about intermittent fasting. I think it's similar to what you said. If you have a lot weight, fasting will be more important. If you don't have so much, fasting maybe not be so important. That's what you think?
Yes, as you get thinner and thinner and thinner, the amount of time you want to fast actually goes down. So if to the point where if you're a bodybuilder trying to get on stage, you want to eat protein every few hours or you're going to lose muscle. But if you weigh 300 kilos, just don't eat for a year. Who cares, And so it depends on how overweight you are, how long you can fast. I don't like really, really long fasting. I don't recommend anything over 24 hours. I prefer protein sparing modified fast where you're just eating some protein and that way you're going to lose less lean mass.
Uh, I know you don't buy a lot those benefits from fasting, like independent of caloric restriction. What do you think about them?
Well, I do think that intermittent fasting actually helps with this fat adaptation process. And so I think it makes you really good at just living off of stored body fat in a low energy environment. So I do like intermittent fasting. Even for people who are getting very lean, I still recommend like a 16-8, 16-hour fast, 8 hour eating. But I wouldn't go any higher than that for someone who's, near their goal weight.
Okay. And about autophagy, you will live longer if you fast more. What do you think?
You actually get just as much autophagy or more from exercise as you do from fasting. So autophagy is occurring anytime the energy availability is very low. You have to create an energy crisis cellularly for this to take place. You could do that with just exercise and nothing having to do with your diet. But I think what you want to do is a little bit of everything. You want to do some exercise. You want to do a little bit of intermittent fasting. You want to do a little bit of caloric restriction by keeping carbs and fats low. So you want to do a little bit of all of these things.
Right. A question I have is when someone is have a lot of weight to lose and do extended fasting, uh, what about the protein? How can they don't eat for days or even weeks and don't eat any protein?
Well, you are eating protein from your muscle.
Uh,
You basically you shrink down your organs and your muscle mass, and you're using protein from inside your body. There's always protein turnover of 200 or 300 grams of protein a day, and you're constantly losing protein in the your skin cells. You're shedding skin cells every day. That's protein. You're shedding the lining of your colon every day just when your mucus and you're sweating and your hair and your skin and your nails and your colon, you're losing protein constantly. You're losing 50 grams a day. You're turning over 300 grams a day. It's helpful to have protein coming in because the very first place you will take protein from is your skeletal muscle. And so if you don't want to lose that, it's probably beneficial to eat some protein.
right. So even to someone with a lot weight is better a protein fast than a really not fasting with nothing.
Right. The other nice thing about continuing to eat something is you're less likely to get a nutrient deficiency. So every day you have requirements for sodium and for potassium and for all these minerals and a lot of nutrients. And it's basically your body has to triage. If you're eating nothing at all, then your body has to extract all of that from your bones and from your muscle and from your organs. And so I think it's nice to have at least some protein and minerals coming in. You just want the energy really low. So you want the protein and minerals so that your body doesn't have to extract those from your lean mass. But you just keep energy really low, carbs or fats, because that's what you're trying to get rid of. You don't want to eat fat because you already have too much fat in your body, and you don't want to eat glucose because it displaces fat oxidation. So you just keep the energy really low, the carbs and the fats, and you just eat the protein and the minerals that you absolutely have to have every day. And that's what a
Right.
protein sparing modified fast is.
That's brilliant. I want to know when you are working in the hospital and you have a patient, how do you introduce the diet? Like you always go to P concepts, you tell people to use like a cellular count protein grams or say just eat more protein. How is your approach?
My approach is typically to point out how that person has energy toxicity. They've ingested too much energy, right? So you've ingested too much energy, and now either you have, too much abdominal fat, or your triglycerides are too high, or your insulin's too high, or your blood sugar's too high, or your blood pressure's too high. These are all signs of energy toxicity. So every single chronic degenerative disease I see, there's some evidence of energy toxicity where someone's eaten too much energy. And so I explain to patients that when you eat, you're trying to get energy, but then you're also trying to get protein and minerals, and these tend to give you even higher satiety. And so what's happened is that when you have foods with protein and minerals and satiety and energy that are equal, you're going to be fine. But you've eaten foods that have higher energy than protein and minerals and satiety, and which is anything that's a refined carb or refined fat. So the entire obesity epidemic is taking energy out of food without protein or minerals or satiety. That's refined carbs and refined fats. So it's sugar, it's flour, it's oil. It's also any food that's just been bred or cultivated or processed to have super high levels of carbs and fat, where the protein and the minerals and the satiety and the fiber is low. So if you just go outside and kill an animal and eat the whole thing, you're going to have really good levels of protein and minerals and satiety and energy. But then if you just strip all the sugar and flour and oil out of your food and just eat that, then it's going to look like this. So I explain to people, your energy intake has been way higher than your satiety, which is protein and minerals. So you want to go out of your way to reverse that. Now you're trying to get the protein and the minerals and the satiety with the smallest amount of energy possible. And you do that by being low carb and low fat at the same time. You want to be low carb and low fat.
Right. Some people say, okay, I get it. I try eat more protein, but I really want to eat chocolate, candy. How do you work on that?
I try to get them to make low carb and low fat things that taste like chocolate, or like my protein ice cream recipe that I posted
I
on
saw.
YouTube. Very helpful. I mean, it tastes fantastic. It gives you this like sweet craving, this chocolate craving. So there's a lot of things you can do with egg whites and whey protein powders and artificial sweeteners. And I encourage patients to try to use these to recreate things that are lower in carb and lower in fat. So you can always eat something you really crave, but you make it in such a way that the carbs are lower or the fat is lower. That's what you have to do. That's basically the secret. It's actually like take every single food you're eating now and figure out a way to make it lower carb and lower fat. And that's just, and even if you can do that a little bit, but you're consistent, you'll slowly lose weight. It's basically food substitutions. So you find ways to make all your foods lower carb and lower fat.
Right. The bad thing is that low carb recipes have very energy, and we have a few recipe books about protein energy uh, desserts.
Hmm.
I'm doing one with a woman who cook very well. We are trying to do recipes with higher P.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
it's very nice. Uh, I always try to uh, be easy to people and say in the start just eat my protein.
Hmm.
But they always want to know the numbers, like how much energy can I eat? Do you have a limit? Like you can eat cheese of carbs, of fats? Uh, how you do?
Right. Well, so just basic rule of thumb, anyone who's overweight should always keep their carbs, their net carbs under 100 grams. That's like kind of, you just always want to be on under 100 grams, and you want to do the exact same thing for fat. You do not want to be eating over 100 grams of fat every day when you're overweight. So the goal is to keep your fat and your carbs at definitely below 100 grams, and maybe way below 100 grams. The lower the better. And then protein, you just eat as much as you want. The the To be honest, the PE diet, it's not really about just eating a ton more protein. Everybody's already eating enough protein. It's really about getting the carbs and the fats lower so that the protein percentage is higher. And you might even just be eating the same amount of protein you were before. So the diet should be called the low carb and the low fat diet at the same time. But that's not very sexy. I wouldn't really sell any books, with low carb, low fat. That's not that, it doesn't even, it's not, it sounds awful, but that's really
Yes.
what you're trying to do. You're not, you're not like, okay, my diet's horrible, so I'm just gonna keep eating this horrible diet and throw it and force myself to eat another 100 grams of protein a
Right.
day. No, you're trying to get the same protein at the lower in carb and fat level. Of course, you're only going to be able to do that if you're targeting leaner proteins, if you're eating more lean beef and fish and poultry and whey protein and that kind of thing. That's the only way to do it. But what you're really doing is just lowering carbs and fats.
Right. Do you have a list of most satiate foods that you are aware?
I don't. Other than to say that the higher the protein and the higher the fiber is, the better. And so the most satiety, you get the highest satiety per calorie when either fat is very low, carbs are very low, or both are very low. So again, you're looking for a food that's extremely low carb, low fat, or both, and that will give you the highest satiety per calorie. I don't really have a list. Um, I have a little website called lowenergydiet.com. And if you go to lowenergydiet.com, I have some foods there that it's not really a list, but it's sort of a list, I guess.
Right.
And of
Uh,
course, I talk about it in the book.
yes. Last question. We are running off time soon. Uh, some people start to get afraid of eating even vegetables because they say the P ratio is not good. And I say, well, don't matter because it's have low energy. What
Mhm.
do you think about eating low sugar fruit, vegetable, even they don't have protein?
Right. So basically, you're going to eat carbohydrate. And so when you do eat carbohydrate, you want to eat carbs that are low carb carbs that have the highest fiber and the highest water and the highest weight and volume per calorie, because that's going to give you a lot of satiety per calorie. So, like for example, strawberries. I eat a fair amount of strawberries. They have a very low protein, so why would I eat them? Well, it's because you could eat 4 pounds of strawberries with 12 cups of strawberries is only 100 grams of net carbs. And so the amount of satiety you get from it is huge. And that's what you're looking for. You're trying to eat this weight and volume of food and getting as much satiety for every single carb that you possibly can. So you have to have the mindset that, okay, I'm going to eat, 50, 60, 100, 150 grams of carbs a day. So what I want to do is intentionally eat the lowest carbs I can find. That's low sugar fruit. Low sugar fruit is an amazing low carb. So you want to eat lots of squash and zucchini and eggplant and uh, these are all fantastic low sugar fruits like peppers and tomatoes and cucumbers. And you get so much satiety for so few calories. It's really beneficial, even though it's not a protein food. So that's why I don't tell people to just eat more protein or just eat no carbs. choose carbs that are the lowest carbs and then eat those on purpose because it's going to give you a lot of satiety. This is why I'm not a pure carnivore. I don't recommend pure carnivore diets because you're leaving a lot of satiety behind from things like salad and green vegetables and low sugar fruit. Now, some vegetables actually have literally a high protein to energy ratio. Like green vegetables are just as high in protein to energy as lean meat. And so they're fantastic from a protein standpoint. But like you said, low sugar fruit really doesn't have much protein in it. You still want to eat it as your carb choice because you're going to eat some carbs, and now you want the carbs with the lowest energy and the highest satiety per calorie. So instead of eating like a half a cup of rice, you eat 2 pounds of strawberries.
Right. Yes, you can look to what is nutritious food. Just have carbs, but have other things too. You can always choose a thing that's pure energy or carbs plus vitamins, minerals. Well, I'm really happy to this talk we have. Uh, my English is far from perfect, but I think we could understand each other. I was maybe a bit nervous too. If you think, say the last words, talk about your book too. Be free to.
Oh, right. Well, thank you so much for having me. You can check out the book at thepediet.com. And yeah, it's been great talking to you. It sounds like you have this all figured out. So nice job.
Thank you. I hope we can talk again in the future. I learned a lot with you, and the P strategy is helping a lot of people here in Brazil,
Oh, great.
especially people who start low carb, lose a bit of weight, then can't lose more because they eat too much fat. They start to cut off the carbs, zero carbs, but still can't lose weight because the energy. And sometimes you have just to cut out a little fat, and you can lose weight again, even with carbs. And
Hmm.
we learn a lot with you. Thank you for your time. It was an honor to talk with you.
Oh, no, thank you. Nice work. Keep up the good
Uh,
work.
I will upload this in my Instagram and YouTube, and I will make subtitles for Portuguese. But I think everyone can watch in English too. And that's it. Thank you and bye.
Great. Thank you. Take care.
Bom, pessoal, acho que foi bem legal. Talvez tenha me enrolado um pouquinho aqui, mas acho que deu para aproveitar bastante. Deu para tirar bastante dúvida. Agora eu vou encerrar aqui e depois eu vou tentar. Eu vou legendar com certeza. Espero que não tenha dado nenhum pau aqui na hora de salvar, mas eu pedi para outras pessoas tentarem gravar também a live. E deu para tirar bastante dúvida, ver que o que a gente está fazendo aqui também tá, tá sendo bem o que ele ensina, né? E para quem está com medo de comer muita proteína e tal, ele tirou bastante dúvida aí, realmente não tem problema. Inclusive para emagrecimento, ele acredita que você não vai engordar se você comer muita proteína. Então, bom, é isso. Aprendi também que é bom fazer live em pé, porque aí a gente gasta mais energia nisso. Bom, então é isso. Eu vou salvar aqui. E depois eu vou tentar fazer a legenda. Vou fazer a legenda aqui em português. Eu vou pedir para alguém me ajudar nisso, porque é muito trabalhoso. E que bom que deu certo. Eu até tava pensando, será que ele vai aparecer mesmo e tal, né? Porque, sabe, eu nunca imaginei que ia fazer uma live com ele e tal. Fiquei bem feliz, fiquei meio nervoso no meio da live. Mas acho que foi bem legal. Então, obrigado a todo mundo que divulgou, participou. E, e é isso, pessoal. Até a próxima. Domingo que vem tem live nova, né? Aquela de domingo. E é isso. Dia 8 a gente vai lançar o livro com receitas com bom PE. Você viu que ele é fã das receitinhas com um bom PE, né? E, e também o novo protocolo PE vai começar também dia 1. E é isso, pessoal. Tamo junto e tal, e espero que vocês tenham gostado. Até a próxima.